What is the elephant in the room for your family? My mom and brother have a very Norman Bates-esque relationship and we never speak about it. He's 20 and she still bathes him. God help me for saying this out loud. My half-sister was raped often by her father. He took her virginity and passed her around his friends. He's now out of the picture, but having my mother and sister in the same room is very tense. Apparently my mother had no idea what was happening. All happened way before I was born, and mom feels incredibly guilty. No one on my father's side likes my mother, her, my sister and I have no idea why. She put in more work for the family than most of the uncles and aunts. She takes care of my father's father since my father died. Recently, they didn't invite her to the baptism of my cousin's kid. My mother is my cousin's godmother. My mother is amazingly nice, but she's going to explode off them one day. I hope I'm around to see it and back her up. Yeah, same with my family. Though when my dad's parents died it kinda brought everyone together and everyone is nice now. Moral of the story, kill the grandparents. Everyone in my family knows my dad plans to divorce my stepmom, but he is just getting things in a row before he pulls the pin. Makes family dinners awkward, because she has no idea. One of my aunts is adopted. She is almost 70 years old and has no idea. Everyone else in the family knows but it was my grandma's dying wish that we never tell her. It's pretty fricked up, to be honest. I bet she knows and is just going along with things. My grandma forced my aunt to have an abortion when she was 16. It went terribly wrong, and she was never able to have kids. My grandma did it because she didn't want her daughter to have a child with a sleazeball. 35 years later my aunt is married to said sleazeball. My grandma felt with her guilt by spoiling the crap out of my aunt's adopted daughter. Whoa, just wow. Been up and down the whole list. This one's the saddest I feel. That I was emotionally and physically abused by my mother's second husband for 10 years, not sexually. Thank God. Everyone saw it happening. Aunts and uncles kept their kids away from our house, and yet no one did a thing. For the last 20 years, everyone has pretended that nothing happened and my mother is still the favorite sister in the family, despite allowing her kid to be abused for the entirety of her marriage. That makes me so angry for you. My uncle used to be openly gay and very active in the gay community, but now he's super Christian and denies everything. Mike Pence approves of this message. Stepfather got belligerently drunk during our vacation in Paris, insulted my wife and I, causing us to leave the restaurant as he made a scene, and he has never apologized. Just pretend it was the waiter, a normal thing in Paris. My younger half-sister who is 11 believes that my dad's wife is her actual birth mom when she really is not. She was the nanny that was cheating with my dad and the real mom took off when my sis was an infant. My dad swore us to secrecy but I think it's fricked up. Last 4th of July one of my younger cousins, 8/F, pushed my great aunt's beloved elderly dachshund into their pool and he drowned. Everyone knows she did it. She even said she did it because she was angry about having to get out of the pool for dinner. But her mom and grandma are still in complete denial and tell her she didn't actually do it. Immediate and extended family have all tried to convince the mother and grandmother to take her to talk to someone because this tiny human is full of anger. But they refuse to see any issue. This most recent 4th of July was awkward as frick. That my sister is the black hole in our family. Anytime it's just me, my oldest sister and our parents, it's so nice and pleasant and nobody has to walk on eggshells and we can be a functional family. Anytime my sister is in the mix, there's walking on egg shells constantly to avoid upsetting her and my parents bend over to her because they took the easy way out with raising her instead of enforcing boundaries. She's extremely manipulative and opinionated and will butt into your business and has something to say about everything you do. I honestly wish she didn't exist. She's just a drain on everyone. My oldest sister and I have distanced ourselves away from her because of her crappy attitude. Well, that's pretty much my older sister, haha. We all have a great time but the moment she shows up it's as if someone sucked all the fun and happiness from the room. My previously reclusive 70-year-old grandfather has inexplicably and very suddenly started reaching out, visiting family, and calling to check in on everyone. The elephant is that nobody knows why and we all know he's too proud to tell us. so we can't tell if he's terminal or if he's just shaking himself out of the half-century of doldrums he put himself in. In either case, he seems to want to make up for all the time he spent ignoring and avoiding his family. I come from a big-ish and fairly close Indian family. We have one household in the family that stands out a bit against the rest of us, but there is one thing that stands out as the elephant in the room. Of the 4 kids my aunt and uncle had, one just happens to be black. We don't know what happened, and no one really talks about it. Some members of our family suspect infidelity, as my uncle is blind, but again, no one knows and we never really bring it up around any of the members of that household. He is probably one of the nicest people in our whole family. He'll call whenever just to say hi, which can't be said of his siblings. Always ends a conversation with "love your fam" or something along those lines. And whenever I visit, he always goes above and beyond all expectations to make sure I enjoy myself. I do feel badly though, as their whole family dynamic is a bit screwed up though, and certain events in their family are also sort of elephants in the room. For example, we don't really talk about how the cousin I mentioned here was stabbed by his brother. It's a thing. Being from India, I was expecting an actual elephant in the room. That said, having a black son but being blind sounds straight up from some sort of 90s comedy or Dave Chappelle's sketch. My parents are functioning alcoholics. Don't get me wrong. They love my siblings and I. They work hard. They're responsible. And they're the best people I know. But goddamn do they like to drink. I thought I could drink, being straight out of college. After a year of living with my parents, they could drink me and all of my friends under the table. It's a little awkward because my older brother has a bit of an issue, and he stopped drinking altogether. But whenever we all get together, man. Hey, my parents too. My dad finally owned up to his crap when I was 14 and got some help. Which makes it even more of an elephant that we don't talk about the fact that my mother drinks 2 bottles of wine a night. She gets really stupid and really verbally abusive when she is drunk, but everyone just ignores it. My aunt and uncle are insanely religious and sheltered the heck out of their children. They were very critical of the way the rest of the parents in the family raised their children. They harassed my mom often over her allowing us to do such worldly things, such as going to school, reading non-religious books, watching secular movies, or being allowed to use, gasp, the internet. Their children were not allowed to do these things. Therefore, they would grow up to be godly people as opposed to the delinquents my mother would be raising. I did turn out to be the only atheist in the family, but far from delinquent. Their son started dating a girl that just happened to be pregnant. He was adamant that she was pregnant before they started seeing each other and that he just loved her so much. He decided he'd step in and raise the child as his own. They married and a baby boy was born about 6 months later. We were all a little shocked at how much the baby looked like him. Conveniently, he got to skip the adoption process by putting his name on the birth certificate. And oddly enough, no baby daddy drama has occurred with the biological father that no one seems to know. As he got older, it was really hard to imagine the baby was not his. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell their childhood pictures apart. He has very distinct features. I get the feeling we all know the truth. Knowing glances are exchanged but no one speaks a word. I'm not sure if it's a lie my aunt and uncle are in on. Maybe they feel like they're saving face with the rest of the family after being so vocal about how perfectly they were parenting their kids. Or maybe he just feels way too intimidated by them and their expectations to be truthful. Either way, it makes me sad that he is so bound up in their rules and morals that he can't honestly claim his own son. And I really can't imagine that my aunt can hold her first grandchild and not have flashbacks when she looks at that face. Hopefully they don't tell the kid that lie. That'd be really fricked up. My dead boyfriend. Last summer, I discovered that my boyfriend was heavily into HUs. I told my family about it. I left him. He went through about 6 months of rehab. And, after 6 months, 3 weeks and 1 day of sobriety, he dead and died. He and I had started to slowly work on a relationship again when he died. I was devastated. My parents and my brother absolutely refused to acknowledge the situation. I've tried to talk to my mother about it and she has said that she doesn't want to talk about it. My brother changes the topic. My father walks away. My extended family has all been extremely supportive and loving. My immediate family would prefer to just pretend it didn't happen. I'm sorry for your loss. That my sister is in an abusive marriage with an alcoholic, but nobody says anything because my parents think that it's better to be in an abusive relationship rather than get a divorce. Whenever my uncle is there, it's kind of awkward. He's the black sheep of my mom's side of the family, your typical negligent father, but we all pretend as if he didn't abandon his family and that his family doesn't hate all of us for simply being related to him. I have an uncle who would show up with random kids, 6 and under. We thought they were playmates of his kids. They were his kids. I have no idea how many cousins I have from my fertile uncle. My wife and I were visiting my parents. My brother and his wife were also visiting. My mom got drunk. She walked into the room. It's okay that you married white women as long as you are happy, but when you get divorced you should marry some good Korean women. The day after my brother and I told her she needs to apologize to our wives, she never did and denies it happened. Haven't talked about it since, but you can tell my mother remembers. My cousin is going on kid number 3 and neither her nor the deadbeat husband, they're not married, do any real job of taking care of said kids. No one wants to address it. No one wants to call social services. I'd do it if I knew where they lived, but they've been evicted so many times I've lost count. It's just the same Olay song and dance every major holiday or family gathering. She and her piece of crap husband come over. The kids look like crap. They eat like they haven't eaten in weeks. Grandparents coddle the kids and pretend this will all work itself out someday. It's not going to work itself out, but God forbid we actually ask if this is the best interest of the children. Gam would have a heart attack. You've got to call CPS. Those poor kids are probably being abused, underfed, live in a dirty home, etc. Find out the address and get those poor kids some help. No one really enjoys being around my sister's kids. Straight brats. Hey, they're just kids. They might be gay brats and not know it. I was molested by my grandfather as a child. It was taken care of in the old family sort of way, everyone distancing themselves and leaving him isolated for the most part, but it's never been talked about at large. They just backed off and let him die alone. I don't know if that's supposed to be enough or if I wanted some sort of justice, but it feels wrongly handled. My mill went to her Phil's funeral just to make sure he's dead, after abusing one of her daughters years ago. Rumor is, she stuck a big hat pin in his arm. My whole family is convinced I'm gay. No matter how much I've expressed I'm not, I've gave up and developed a pretty good lisp to play along. I swear I read a post on here about a user whose mom thought he was gay even though he wasn't. So he would always invite girls over for sleepovers, which his mother found harmless because she thought he was gay, and he'd bang the heck out of the girls. Might be worth a try. My grandparents always said they got married before my oldest uncle was born. Shotgun wedding when they were 18 and 20. Turns out, my uncle was born 6 weeks before their wedding date. They lied to everyone. One of my aunts found their real wedding certificate after grandma passed away and told us all except that uncle. His nickname behind his back is Uncle Bastard. He's a big ol' redneck ass bag, so I don't even feel bad calling him that. Old Uncle Bastard sounds like an awesome nickname. My 2 eldest cousins are most likely not my uncle's children. They look very little like their father and our family, but a lot like their mother and her current husband. My husband is adopted. Everyone knows. But once his one cousin made a remark to me that my husband is not really a insert his last name here. I glared at him until he got uncomfortable and walked away from me. I didn't tell my husband, but a big chunk of his family saw the exchange. I refuse to invite that butthole to my house or go to any event at his place. Literally no one blames me, but my husband gets a bit confused. My dad is the middle child. His older brother has a different father than he does, and his younger brother has the same father he does. Supposedly, it's pretty obvious to everybody in our family that my grandmother is lying about that, and that my dad's younger brother has the same father as his older brother. One of my cousins is in jail for nearly murdering a little girl at a gas station. No one but my grandma, who he lived with growing up, even knew about it. My brother only found out because he ran a Google search after she had told us our cousin was at church camp for the 5th year in a row. We do not ever discuss it and let her live her lie. I guess it makes her feel better to deny the truth. My older brother sexually abused me when I was 7 and 8. Everyone knows. But I'm the one creating tension by choosing not to be a part of any event he attends or have any contact. I see my parents on off days rather than holidays because he gets those so they can see his children. Doesn't bother me after so many years. But every once in a while a family member randomly asks if we could have a real holiday this year with everyone in attendance. I want to say, is he gonna try to sodomize me? Because I didn't particularly enjoy it last time. I don't. I just say I have other commitments. Not getting sodomized is one of them. Frick them. Seriously, if they side with a rapist, you don't need them. A lot of my family members are notorious philanderers, so some of my younger cousins, uncles, aunts, etc. are illegitimate children from those various dalliances and flings. It makes family reunions nightmares because the legit family members, though they'll try to be polite, are really rude to the others. Philanders and dalliances. What? My parents love my sister more than me. My sister is both of their biological child. I'm only my mother's. My mother and sister hang out, go shopping, and routinely just talk or play. My stepfather talks and plays with her as well. They never engage me unless I engage them. They also were behind her all the way up to getting her driver's license, asking her if she wanted to use their cars, taking her to the test, and all of that stuff. Meanwhile, have never spoken to me about assistance with pretty much anything. Before driving, they drove her to work every day when she worked literally right down the street, maybe a 15 to 20 minute walk. I on the other hand bike 20 minutes to work every day. I believe most of this is my lack of motivation, and her having motivations, so they just are more proud of her, so they treat her better. Recently it's my aunt's attempted suicide to get away from my physically and emotionally abusive uncle. Uncle is the blood relative. She did survive, but she said she doesn't regret trying. Just regrets that it didn't work. We never had any clue before. Only ever saw them briefly at holidays, and they'd always leave after a short while to go see her family. I feel for your aunt. I attempted last year after 2 years of constant emotional abuse by my mom. There were small signs that no one picked up. I also don't regret it and often wished it had been successful. My life has always been a struggle no matter what I do, and I'm just really exhausted. 2 huge elephants hang out, flapping their ears in the breeze at every family gathering. My maternal grandmother owned a brothel for almost 40 years. My mother spent time in prison before she met my father. My aunt's husband is an butthole who makes sexually colored jokes in front of the kids and treats my aunt like a bank and controls her money even though she earns a majority of their income. But no one says anything to him to his face. Talk plenty behind his back in order to keep the peace at family events and holidays. It's also my mum who sets them up, so her offers to set me up are definitely not wanted. My mum's parents are very religious, always have been. Like verging on crazy, but they're sweet people. We had a birthday party for my aunt, and when she told her how old she was I did the math. Turns out she was conceived out of wedlock. No one was happy when I announced it. Haha. I have mate like that. He comes from a very Indian family so obviously sex talk etc is a no-go. However, he told us about his parents' wedding anniversary and how they were celebrating their 20th or something. My mate's older. I don't think he's figured it out, but everyone in our friend circle knows. Mum walked out on dad on his 60th birthday and moved to Alaska with a college boyfriend. He died from the stress not long after. She refuses to acknowledge that he ever existed, or certainly that his death was a result of her actions. She also refuses to acknowledge the heartbreak my sister and I are dealing with. It's as if their 30+ year marriage never existed. I irrationally hate your mom after reading this. I'm sorry that happened to you. My uncle's wife has ran off with his cousin like 9 times. He keeps taking her back. I hate having to be polite to her at family gatherings. The guy she keeps messing around with is violent and it's putting their kids at risk. The oldest cousin has been arrested more than once for DUI. He's showed up to multiple family functions drunk and even started this family vacation intoxicated. He's a really good kid that loves his family. He just got caught up in the wrong crowd. It's pretty sad, but he's slowly getting better. Also, my brother and his husband. We're a big right-wing Christian family. That's not so much an elephant in the room as much as it is just a controversial part of our family. It's good now though. It took me a minute to figure out what was wrong with my brother and his husband. The fact that I never told my parents I had a child with one of my exes, and have been trying to get back together with her for years. Never talked about it with my family, but I know that they are aware. We have this rubber chicken that we hide in and around each other's possessions. I once opened my pencil case at school to find a rubber chicken inside it. Well, this is surprisingly wholesome compared to the rest of the thread. I think a lot of people can relate to the racist dad archetype, but mine is incredibly outspoken. We're not talking KKK and burning brands here. We live in the UK. It's not an option. But he's run for council in support of nationalist parties and firmly believes that the only way to prevent wholesale destruction is to deport anyone who might be foreign. Of course I love my dad, but it's a conflicting sort of love. Deport anyone who might be foreign. I know his name is John Smith. He's ginger and pasty as heck, but he was wearing French aftershave. We just can't take the risk. Deport him. My dead sister. It happened 6.5 years ago when I was in high school, but it's still fresh in my mind. The only people that cared about it were within one step from my immediate family, so aunts, uncles, cousins, parents. The rest of the family never gave a crap. At our yearly week-long family reunion, they had a memorial type thing officiated by a pastor that still hangs around the family even though he's not in the family anymore. Our side of the family can't stand him for what he has done even before this. It was freaking pathetic and too religious. We are the only part of the family that isn't religious and they know it. That whole thing was just so they could feel good about trying to do something that just made us more mad. A couple days later, a card game turned into people talking about whose ashes they have and where they are. Now they act like she never existed and get awkward when she's brought up. That sounds awful. If you want to talk about it, we, the Risk-Diters, are here to listen. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.